This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob blows the hippie conspiracy for world domination wide open. Eve slays dragons. Sharon found this week's extraordinary publication just lying around. And Tim walks all over fake Twitter followers. I'm your host, Brian Gregory, and I am Paul Fidalgo's number one fan. Number one fan. See, genuine reaction. Okay. Our panel this week, let's see. We have Bob Blaskiewicz, CFI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Swift blog contributor. Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities. Sharon Hill, editor of Doubtful News and author of Sound Sciencey, a CSI web column. And finally, Tim Farley, JREF fellow and creator of whatstheharm.net and the Skeptical Software Tools blog. Welcome, everyone. I'm boisterous this week.
Wow. And you didn't stun us into silence with a quote that we didn't recognize.
Yeah, like I did last week. Sorry about that. In case you didn't know, that was from Book of Mormon, the play I saw last week. So, I think y'all should know that, right? Right, yes. Uh-huh.
We do now.
Yes, thanks. So, announcements. Let's see. Star Party at DragonCon is tomorrow.
Yep.
I need confirmation. Yes.
It's at Stats downtown in Atlanta. I am going to be there. I'm going to be running a hangout like this where we're going to be broadcasting George Rabb and Marion Call and Phil Plate and Nicole Gugliucci and all sorts of astronomy and music. And it's going to be great, and we're going to raise money for cancer research with the Foundation Beyond Belief and Light the Night.
Awesome. So that's DragonCon this weekend, right? So.
And Sharon and Tim, you guys have appearances at DragonCon.
Yes.
Yep, I'm doing a panel on Monday about how to attract more people to your media, your blog or your website or your events, and try to maybe cross the aisle and reach out to people who you might not normally bring to your events, like maybe some paranormal believers or some people that are just interested in science, don't really get skepticism as an idea yet. Let's try to bring them in, and how can we attract those new audiences to our media?
Do you mention kidnapping?
I don't have that on as an idea. I don't think it's really.
Well, I'm glad we talked about this then. That's good.
PR.
Should we let the ghost hunter out of the closet then?
Yeah.
I plan on doing some stealth skepticism. You know, going into these other panels. I'll visit the paranormal track and I don't know, the alternate history thing is all steampunk. That's not my thing, but I want to look around and peek in and see what the other side is doing.
Could I give you a tip? I don't know if you brought business cards with you for Doubtful News.
I did.
You did. There are tables by the paranormal track where you can leave your business cards. You know, last year we took issues of Skeptical Inquirer from their display table and put them down by the paranormal track. I'm
totally going to do that.
Excellent.
So that's DragonCon. Also, there's a big skeptic track called SkepTrack, ironically enough. Let's see. We got websites for this stuff, right? So the Star Party is atlantaskeptics.com/Star Party.
That's right.
That's tomorrow night. And SkepTrack, which is all kinds of interesting skeptical stuff put on by... It's still Derek and Swoopy doing this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Skepticality.
It's mostly Derek.
Mostly Derek? Okay. That's skeptrack.org. There's a schedule there and probably lots of other interesting related information. Do we have any other announcements? I think we're good, right? Any follow-up from last week?
I got nothing.
Got nothing, too.
I was not prepared.
Not prepared. I know, I didn't ask that question in the pre-meeting. And the meeting to the pre-meeting. So we're going to go in a different order this week. Amazingly enough, we're going to shuffle everyone around and make Eve go first.
I'm confused and don't know how this works, but I'll try. Well, this week, big think. posted a video featuring Bill Nye, the Science Guy. The video, which is called "Creationism is Not Appropriate for Children," somewhat surprisingly went viral. It had over 2,250,000 views on YouTube by this morning. It had received 43,000 likes and 8,600 dislikes. The video is quite short, and Bill's not really at his most charismatic in it, but he notes that the United States has been and continues to be an innovator in science and technology. People come here to study or work because of our reputation as a scientific leader. On the other hand, there's a large proportion of people, of 46% according to a Gallup poll, who dismiss the theory of evolution by natural selection. So Nye points out that the world doesn't really work without evolution, doesn't make sense without evolution, and he's concerned about the next generation. Quote, "I say to the grown-ups, if you want to deny evolution and live in your world that's completely inconsistent with everything we observe in the universe, that's fine, but don't make your kids do it because we need them," unquote. The video's popularity, the video's popularity and the preponderance of likes may be considered as a win for critical thinking and science, if of course one didn't suspect that it's sort of preaching to the choir, which is a problem that we often have.
Yeah.
However, the video...
We don't have any skeptics listen to us at all, so...
Well, there's that. However, the video has stirred enough of a kerfuffle that Nye appeared on CBS This Morning the other day to explain that he's not anti-religion. And I actually think his appearance on CBS This Morning was kind of better than the video. But among the things he said, quote, "You can believe what you want religiously. Religion is one thing, but science, provable science, is something else. My concern is you don't want people growing up not believing in radioactivity, not believing in geology and deep time. You don't want people in the United States growing up without the expectation that we can land spacecraft on Mars. You want people to believe in science, this process, this great idea that humans had to discover more about the universe and our place in it, our place in space," unquote. Also, by strange coincidence, on Sunday, Nye was the victim of a Twitter death hoax. And I'm not sure exactly how those two relate, but it was, I believe the death hoax was after the video first appeared.
So was it a hoax of your death?
Sorry?
Okay, go ahead. Just continue.
There was yeah, okay.
Must have had an audio glitch.
So, while the video isn't likely to change the minds of any young Earth creationists, it is a reminder to us, at least, of how important the issue is. So, with that in mind, I'd like to talk briefly about our friends in Answers in Genesis / the Creation Museum / Ark Encounter, and see what they've been up to. Now, things haven't been going great for them recently. Yeah, I know, it's very sad. They've been having trouble raising funds for their for Ark Encounter, which is, so they can prove once and for all that it's possible to dig a huge wooden boat on land.
And by prove, and by prove you mean they just say it really loudly.
Yeah. And there have been delays. I believe attendance is also down at the Creation Museum, although, I mean, that sort of makes sense. The economy has been problematic, and it doesn't have the novelty attraction that it used to. It doesn't have that new dinosaur smell.
I'm not even sure what that would be.
Chicken. Yeah.
Like dinosaur.
But they're not giving in. This summer, the Creation Museum started putting up sort of cartoony dinosaur billboards all over the U.S. I saw one outside Atlanta when we were on the cab on the way from the airport after TAM. They've put up 100 billboards, and according to them, quote, 58 along major interstates that lead toward the museum, and about 50 others that can be found along or entering major interstates and highways. This includes boards located around some mega churches and amusement park areas such as Dinosaur World near Tampa, Florida, unquote. And their goal is to place at least one billboard in each state. And Answer in Genesis was encouraging people to sponsor the billboards. Previously, they had a more local billboard campaign that won a Traverse Advertising Award in Kentucky, and that billboard...
A perverse advertising award?
Traverse.
One could hope.
Yeah, and that billboard was actually pretty darn cool. Evil, but pretty darn cool.
Oh, wow, look at that.
I kind of enjoy seeing a Creation Museum sign vandalized. That's just me.
By big-ass dinosaurs.
That's a technical term, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a very cool billboard.
It is. And, but now, what if your kids aren't interested in dinosaurs? Well, first you should probably take their temperature or check for pods. But if they are healthy and they don't seem to have been taken over by aliens or communists, but they're just sort of bored with dinosaurs, there's still hope at the Creation Museum. Because earlier this month, the Ark Encounter website announced that the Creation Museum is putting billboards of dragons, and not just any kind of dragons, fire-breathing dragons. There's one. Now, the Creation Museum's dinosaurs and dragons are basically kid bait. The Creation Museum's gift shop, the Dragon Hall bookstore, is full of homeschooling materials as well as dinosaur and dragon toys. Ken Ham has written children's books about dinosaurs, and his son-in-law, Bodie Hodge, has co-written a grammatically disastrous picture book about dragons and dinosaurs.
You bought it?
Yeah, I reviewed it. I bought it from Amazon and thing, so that got some money to JREF.
Generic excuse here.
There you go.
Now, their argument is that dragons are dinosaurs and dinosaurs are dragons.
Lame.
Yeah, as the Ark Encounter blog
I feel a biblical quote coming on.
says, no, it's not biblical.
Yeah.
And Jesus said,
the blog says, in 1841, British paleontologist Richard Owen coined the word dinosauria. Until that time, dinosaurs were simply called dragons, and stories of dragons abounded all over the world, unquote. Now, some websites such as leoweekly.com and barefootandprogressive.com have pointed out the problem of, any fire-breathing animal on a big-ass wooden boat. But there's an even bigger logical problem with the conflation between dragons and dinosaurs, it seems to me. If medieval dragon slaying stories like Beowulf are basically eyewitness accounts, which
that's what they claim.
Museum claims and promotes, then I want to know which dinosaur, I'm not sciencey, so maybe someone else will know, which dinosaur flew, breathed fire, exuded poison, and enjoyed napping for a few hundred years on treasure. Anyone?
Big fire-eating flying Naposaurus?
They have, well, dinosaurs did fly. I mean, they did become birds, but it's the fire-breathing thing that's the troubling part, because you just,
and
don't
the treasure loving.
Yeah, you don't just chew sulfur and then have a
treasure
stick in your throat where you could just, light it on fire. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and that they're just so casually put up a fire-breathing dragon and say, it's a dinosaur. It's like, okay, then tell me which one it is.
They're really good at making stuff up.
Well, yeah. So it just doesn't work.
Yes.
Fire-breathing dragons are not a strong argument for creationism.
So keep making it, Ken.
Yeah. They don't really make sense. They're, as far as I can tell, they're just used to lure kids. And once those kids have been lured, then they can be carefully weaned away from actual science, not to mention appropriate appreciation for literature, art, folklore, mythology.
Now you're just talking nonsense.
So, to sum up, dinosaurs are dinosaurs, and dragons are dragons. They're different. One group was real, and one group's a lot more fun.
So, did you notice that just today we posted a story that they're about to complete their triple play? They have the Creation Museum, the Ark Encounter, and now you know what their new thing is?
No.
Did you hear about this?
Mm-mm.
I'm terrified.
Yeah, it's great. Creation Scientists Hall of Fame.
Oh
boy.
Bugger.
That's just going to be a big empty hall, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. But apparently what they're going to do is sort of cheat and say that people like Leonardo da Vinci and Faraday and Marconi were mentioned at some point as being men of God and count them in under Creation Scientists Hall of Fame.
No.
It's totally really vile.
No. You can't. No.
Sorry. Is Einstein going to be in that group too?
I don't know, but I mean, it's just a way of them making stuff up again.
Yeah. It's like padding your CV, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's their new thing. It's going to be a short list of uninfluential scientists, that's for sure, for real. But.
Yes, Eve?
Can dead people sue them? A lot.
If they have an estate.
Yeah, maybe.
I would be appalled, you know, if I was the family of Faraday and.
But all those dead people are already Mormon.
I want Leonardo da Vinci to just come back from the dead and smack them.
Well, they had better be careful about using any images of Einstein if they decide to do that, because there is a very. He donated his image rights to, is it Hebrew University, I think, in Israel? And they have a foundation set up to manage, so whenever you see anything with Einstein's picture on it, money goes to that university, which is a good thing, right? But they have to guard that, you know. So if you use a picture of Einstein without permission, you may get a phone call from a lawyer.
Cool. I'm checking for, let's see, let me check for any questions. I don't see any questions, so I guess it's time to move on. Unless, Eve, you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay, I hear silence. So, Bob, you're up next. See, we've switched two people, and that is a complete schedule change.
That's amazing. All right, so this week I suffered from an embarrassment of riches, really. I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with politics, since the Republicans were meeting in Tampa. Now, there was a lot of goofy stuff this week. The Raelians sponsored their Go Topless Day.
Yep.
That was in Central Park.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. Slate covered the Scientologists and the Birchers, who appeared at the Ron Paul Appreciation Convention that was down the road from the main show. Mitt Romney, in the words of Jonathan Kay's Canadian reporter, he, quote, blew the birther dog whistle, making a joke nobody ever questioned where my birth certificate came from. Ha, ha, ha. I believe that was part of the quote.
Yeah.
And any of these would have been an acceptable topic because of the standards we have here. But the weirdest thing, I think, came out of Texas. This week, a Lubbock County judge, Republican, called for a 1.7% property tax increase. Can you believe it? A Republican called for a tax increase. But if that weren't crazy enough...
Wow. It's end times, for sure.
I know. And the seventh seal was opened. He argued that the county needed it in case President Obama was reelected and a civil war broke out. That's the guy. Tom Head, County Judge Tom Head, speaking.
He looks in no way crazy.
Yeah.
No,
I was trying to mimic.
No, not at all.
He was speaking to a local Fox station, And he said, and I wondered, can we run that clip? Is that going to be possible, or do
we never figured it out. We'll have to figure that out next time.
Okay, so
so everybody can watch it. Yeah, in the show notes.
That's cool.
It's a nice video.
Obama's going to quote, try to hand over the sovereignty of the United States to the UN.
And what is going to The Voice?
Oh, okay.
To The Voice.
You!
No.
Going to try to hand over the sovereignty of the United States to the UN. And what's going to happen when that happens? I'm thinking the worst. Civil unrest. Civil disobedience. Civil war, maybe.
Well, we've just turned off any possible Southern viewers. We're very sorry.
I live
South.
in Atlanta, and I am offended.
Dude, where do you think I learned that accent? So, and we're not talking a few riots here and demonstrations. We're talking Lexington, Concord. Take up arms and get rid of the guy. Now, what's going to happen if we do that, if the public decides to do that? He's going to send in UN troops. I don't want them in Lubbock County, okay? So I'm going to stand in front of their armored personnel carrier and say, you're not coming in here.
That was actually pretty good. The one thing I was trying to add is the interviewer is like falling asleep the entire time going,
the interviewer is hilarious because he's just kind of going, yeah, yeah. Just kind of egging him on, not reacting to this total goofiness that's coming out of this guy's mouth. And I felt sorry for the other guy who was sitting on the stage with him, just kind of like shrinking back, you know.
Sometimes you just hand them the rope and they just hang themselves.
But the
just let him
go. Yeah.
I know this guy has some authority, but since his statement kind of went crazy on the internet, he said that the clip has been taken out of context, that in fact he was only talking about a hypothetical worst case scenario. Yeah, I mean, because evil liberal media or whatever.
It was the script for his new book. Fiction, completely.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. The idea that UN troops are going to invade the United States actually has some provenance. It's been circulating for over 20, maybe 30 years in far-right militia lore, the type of stuff that Alex, kind of the vague paranoia of Alex Jones followers, and even it's a story that's attractive to the end-time Christian fundamentalists that the Left Behind series targeted. So at issue is the so-called Agenda 21 conspiracy theory, which seems to me to have been gaining currency in the last couple of years. I may talk a little bit why I think that is. I think it has to do with environmentalism, and people think that global warming is a hoax as global warming becomes more important. Agenda 21 was a non-binding agreement at the UN signed by over 170 countries in 1992. Essentially, it was drafted to encourage environmentally and economically sustainable development, combat urban sprawl by building compactly, and maintaining open spaces. In the strange world of conspiracy theorists, however, it's come to be a sign that the UN wants to usurp U.S. private property laws and sovereignty, according to the Texas Tribune, an online source. Quote, the Republican National Committee adopted a resolution in January against Agenda 21 as, quote, within a quote, a comprehensive plan of extreme environmentalism, social engineering, and global political control, end quote, in a quote. The Texas Republican Party followed suit at its state convention in June, adding opposition to Agenda 21 to the party's platform, end of that quote. So the New York Times has covered the impact of this conspiracy theory that it's had on a national level, including projects like efficient high-speed rail initiatives in the Northeast. Newt Gingrich denounced it during the Republican debates, and according to the Times, quote, more than a dozen cities, towns, and counties under new pressure have cut off financing for a program that offers expertise on how to measure and cut carbon emissions, something that is kind of important. Arizona has banned participation in anything Agenda 21 related, but it's Arizona. We can't do anything about that. A Texas RNC speaker and candidate for Senate, Rafael Ted Cruz, says that it's a George Soros-backed plan to undermine American sovereignty.
There's George again.
Yeah, I know. This bizarre conspiracy theory accords well with the Tea Party suspicions of big government and the suspicions that global climate change is a hoax. They see the Agenda 21 as being the leading edge of an assault on American sovereignty, eventually leading to global government. This is something when Christian fundamentalists or militia people say that they're worried that you wonder, like, how is cap and trade going to be cap and trade of carbon emissions going to be the tool by which environmentalists take over the world. This is what they're talking about. They're harking on calling on Agenda 21 as their justification. Now, while people are in an uproar over the statements of one goofy judge in Texas, he really only goes one step farther than an actual Senate candidate from the same state, which, in my opinion, should be deeply worrying.
That's true.
To be fair,
go ahead, Evie.
Agenda 21 does have the word agenda in it.
That's true.
That's true.
And it sounds vaguely like a Michael Crichton novel.
Agenda 21?
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, I seem to have stunned you into silence.
Yes, we're
Indeed.
stunned.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Absolutely stunned.
Yeah.
Mostly it was the shirt, though.
Oh, that's right. This isn't a podcast.
Well, wow, I have nothing to say to that. Except,
We'll wait for the questions to pour in on that one.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all
pouring
too
in.
stunned.
There's pants jokes, but there are no questions.
Yeah, okay.
So up next, we got, let's see, Sharon's next. And I meant to, when I was talking about it today on Virtual Skeptics, I meant to go, rawr, so that we could actually get the homophone pun.
Right. Yeah. That was lion, Lion.
Yes.
So last Sunday night, just before 7 p.m. in Clacton-on-Sea, which is a seaside corner of Essex in the UK, a woman looked out of her window, noticed some smoke which she thought was a fire in the field, and then she saw a shape in the wheat field, got out her binoculars, and saw what she thought looked like a lion in the field. Her husband also thought it looked like a lion, and he called the police. The neighbors believed they saw a large cat, lion, or tiger, and the police helicopter was dispatched, and they claimed they saw a large cat in the field. So at 10 p.m., another witness said they heard a loud roar. And the reports of the animal varied a little. A lion really doesn't look like a tiger, and the original witness said it looked more like a sphinx, but it had no mane.
Well, it couldn't be a sphinx.
Yeah, it looked like a sphinx.
Okay.
Sphinx.
It could be.
What? Was it posing riddles?
You can't prove that it wasn't.
But then the social networks lit up, spreading the story all over, and the locals were told to stay inside as the search continued. The local Colchester Zoo was called, and they weren't missing any cats, but representatives were shown some of the pictures which were taken by the people, but they were far away and of poor quality. Now, the original news report stated that the zoo officials were prompted by these photos to commence with the search, but the photo was not immediately released. But that didn't stop the Daily Mail and other outlets from posting pictures of a snarly male lion. You can see the picture there, and with their dramatic version of the story, and the photo of what looked like a male lion in the darkness with the eye shine that was posted on the Daily Mail. But this actually wasn't one of the photos that prompted the cat hunt.
Are you sure that's not a chupacabra?
I think that's a sphinx.
No, you'll see the sphinx in a little while.
Okay.
So Twitter accounts were set up to follow the movements of the lion, and this is still within the 24-hour period. And it was reported that the account Essex Lion on Twitter had 40,000 followers at one point.
Gotta love Twitter.
And it turned into a circus, causing a stir in the village of St. Osyth, which made the locals a little concerned. But 19 hours later, it was all over. The officials were looking for some kind of physical evidence, like trackways or scat, if they couldn't get a sighting of the creature itself, but they found nothing, and the police determined that the cat was probably just a wild cat or large domestic cat. So maybe we could see the real picture that prompted this? Yeah, if you could see it, it's just, it could be a large cat, but it's in a wheat field. We don't see any scale, and it is from far away. But a little bit of background about the big cats in England, Scotland. Large native cats, non-native cats are reported all over the UK, and there is some evidence that some really large cats do exist in the wild. What happened was that the laws for keeping exotic pets changed in 1976 when the government introduced the Dangerous Wild Animal Act, and the rumor was that some of those animals were set free rather than the owners registering them and meeting the new restrictions. So it's possible, but the evidence isn't all that great. But there is some evidence that shows that there are some wild cats out there. Some scientists actually do believe that that's true. But this was probably not even a sighting of a strange creature. It was more likely a very common critter, perhaps just uncommonly large. And, this picture is simply not impressive, and I wonder why this picture caused such a stir and caused the police to expend quite a bit of resources on this thing. But lions and other large cats on the loose are very common stories that appear across the UK, and many areas have their own killer cats named after the locale. The Beast of Bodmin more is like the most popular one. And whenever there's livestock attack, non-native big cats are blamed. So the lore is very strong. And I think the locals are primed to interpret strange events possibly in terms of the mystery cats. So these stories appear quite frequently, cause media sensations for a day or two during a time of year when there really isn't much other news going on. And it's a silly season. So I think that where the grass may be high and people are outside, they notice these things, it looks weird to them. But the common feature of these sightings, wherever in the world they occur, is that the animal is far away when they witness it, usually in a field, no objects around to give a sense of scale. Other witnesses are asked if they think the animal seen is suspicious, so there's not only this opportunity to misinterpret a mundane thing for something extraordinary, but the culture finds this alternative not too far-fetched because they've heard all these stories before. So it's just interesting enough to draw the heavy press attention and scary enough to spark these local concerns, if it really is a lion, maybe we should keep people inside. So I think that's what happened here. I don't think we can chalk up the Essex lion to anything but a collective delusion. He achieved his 15 hours of fame, and I expect T-shirts will be made and pubs named after him, and that's how the folklore works. It only needs imagination, not really any concrete evidence to flourish.
So basically what you're saying is that they cried wolf?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, there was a local woman who said it was her cat. She is a ginger Maine Coon cat, which are the largest domestic breed, and they have a ruff, which sort of looks maney. And he patrols that area. He hunts birds and small rodents, and his name is Teddy Bear. Aww. So the Essex lion may actually be someone who's named Teddy Bear.
About a year ago, I was in, I guess this was in January, I was in Washington State, and I saw my first, gigantic wildcat that turned out to be a very small domestic cat. I'm totally a believer. It was a convincing illusion that I witnessed with another person, and we both were convinced that the scale, that it was just gigantic. It was like a panther or something. Turned out to be just a little black kitty, but it was convincing. It really was.
Yeah. Was this on the way home from the pub?
No. We were bird watching, and we saw a panther.
Right.
So, yeah, I totally believe it.
Okay, we let's see. I can work in something from the internet to prove this is live. Richard Saunders. You guys probably know who he is.
Richard!
Skeptic Zone, Australian.
It's the morning
podcast.
where he is. He's watching us in the morning.
Next week.
He's from
there is a whole time travel thing going on. I don't understand it. But he made a comment about there being reports of black panthers near Sydney from time to time, but they never find them.
They spent money, government money in Victoria. Was announced last week that they've actually spent public money in a time of a very tight budget to look seriously at the reports of these large cats in that part of Australia, and people are not too happy about that.
I think Maynard recently did a feature on a couple of sightings. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
There was quite a bit of press about it. Yeah.
I think we should work it. Oh, it's my mic. Okay. I thought my mic was off there for a second. I think we should try to work in as many plugs for other podcasts as we possibly can. I'm just saying.
There's 96 of them. We got plenty to plug.
So, and on that note, up next, Tim Farley. Tell us about Twitter stuff.
Yeah, it was. It seemed like we've had a couple of weeks of everything you know is wrong. We had the Jonah Lehrer plagiarism scandal, which isn't really wrong. I mean, it's wrong, but it's not misinformation. It's just incorrectly reused information. And then Fareed Zakaria, I think, was also accused of that. And if you read the New York Times, there was an article this past weekend about a huge underground market for authors basically agreeing to review each other's books on Amazon. And people writing deliberately bad reviews of their competitors' books, and people paying people to write reviews, to the point that it's not entirely clear how many reviews are actually meaningful. And of course, some of the guys were poo-pooing it and saying, well, you know, if you trust a review that's written by someone who's not a verified name, then you get what you pay for. And those of us who've hung around online for a long time, you know, kind of know that this sort of stuff goes on. I mean, if you use Yelp at all, you'll notice that you'll see weird reviews on businesses. There was a hilariously bad coffee shop quite near my house. And
how was it hilariously bad?
Well, it was just, I don't even want to get into it because it's not skeptical, but we went there once and they did everything you could possibly do wrong in a coffee shop. And but I subscribe to a thing that sends me geographical information. So one of the things it does is sends me notices of Yelp reviews of businesses in my area. And I was noticing this business would get like 5 5-star reviews and then 1 1-star review. And then it would get 5 more 5-star reviews and then another 1-star review. Yeah. And it was just hilarious to read down the reviews because the 1 stars, if you had been there, sounded like the coffee shop that you had been in, but the 5 stars were just wildly fictional, or they would refer to the 1-star reviews and say, this person has just got it in for the coffee shop. So there's a lot of nonsense going on. And by the way, the coffee shop is out of business now. But I'm going to focus on something that's been mentioned already, Twitter followers. There was a little bit of a thing that went on a few weeks back, I guess it was in July, where it made the news that Mitt Romney's Twitter followers had suddenly jumped in one day by several thousand followers. And somebody investigated, and it appeared to be that he had essentially a whole bunch of fake Twitter accounts following him. And it turns out there's this whole underground market. And in part, it came out because there had been some discussion of this practice going on. And if you're on Twitter long enough, you'll notice every once in a while you get followed by these weird accounts that have no tweets and just don't ring true when you look. And you look at who they're following and who's following them, and none of it makes any sense. And they're actually robotic accounts created by scammers, and they will basically sell follows to you amazingly cheaply. For like $100 you can buy thousands of followers on Twitter, and there are all these fake accounts following you with stolen pictures and stuff like that. So of course someone said, well, if there are fake followers out there, we need to be able to find them and out the people who have fake followers, right? So they built this app. This is just a screenshot of it being used. It's called Fakers, fakers.statuspeople.com, and it kind of groups your followers into 3 groups. The good is people who are obviously using Twitter, retweeting you and tweeting and stuff like that. The fake are the people that appear to be robots or, you know, otherwise not actual accounts. And then there's this sort of gray area or orange on the screen, inactive in the middle. And those are people who don't seem to be tweeting. Maybe they aren't using their Twitter account anymore. Maybe they just read Twitter and they don't actually tweet. But if you go through and look...
So these are just followers. These aren't like follow-backs or like people you're following. It's just the people who follow... Like
just the people who are following that person.
Okay.
The assumption being that if they have a really large number of fakes, that possibly something, something untoward might have happened. But as you can see, even a normal person will often have, this is PZ Myers stats currently, and I just ran it a few minutes ago, and he has 23% fake. Now, an account that has, tens of thousands of followers will attract robots because in order to create a robotic account that Twitter won't disable, you have to have it follow some real accounts. If it just follows the paid accounts, it's pretty easy to spot that algorithmically. So what they'll do is they'll create these accounts, have them follow a few famous people, and then start following other people too. And so you have to kind of look at the person's follow history to be able to tell whether or not they've actually bought followers. And people have, since the Mitt Romney thing came out, people accused Barack Obama of having purchased followers because he has a large number of fakes following him. But if you go to twittercounter.com, and here's the graphs for both Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, you can see that Barack Obama's graph is a very steady growth, whereas Mitt Romney has this huge jump right at the end of July and then starts to fall back off and goes back to normal growth patterns again. Now, here's the interesting thing. Since this is a scam, there's no security on it. So we don't know that Mitt Romney bought those followers for himself. Someone who wanted to embarrass Mitt Romney might have bought them for Mitt Romney's account and then leak the information to the press. That's just as easy to do as it is for Mitt Romney to buy them himself. So I got interested just from the standpoint of using these tools. You might be able to detect, for instance, people skeptics are trying to debunk overly inflating themselves on Twitter, right? And
Mike Adams.
Well, I looked at Mike Adams, and I looked at Mercola, and I looked at a lot of the standard people. Deepak Chopra, because he has over 1 million followers, does have a fair number of robots. His actual number of active people is only about 30%, so it drops people's numbers down. But here's one that stood out a little bit. It's apparently there's a ballot initiative in California this fall called number 37, and it's one of these anti-science GMO food is terrible and we don't want it. So the ballot initiative is to require all the manufacturers to mark on the food whether there's any GMO products in it. And I happened to find this account, CA Right to Know, which is the official, lobbying group for that thing, and you'll notice that they have not only a huge jump right at the beginning of July, but they also have several other jumps or a second jump near the middle of July that seems to stand out. So this, the rest of it looks fairly normal. And you'll notice that right after you buy followers, your follower account tends to go down right after, because Twitter notices these jumps in activity, and their algorithms say, "Oh, look, all these people followed this guy all at once. I think maybe there's some robots in there," and they start disabling those accounts. So your followers will go up, and then they'll start to slowly taper off. So you'll see that in all the graphs.
What do you think that Sarcastic Rover's follower count looks like?
Oh, I don't know. I can run that in a second.
Well, I just ran my account because I was curious.
Yeah.
And I actually feel really good right now. Really good. So you want to know what numbers are? I got let's see, 10% inactive. So
that's good.
About 10% of people are not active on Twitter. My fake is 1%.
Wow, nice.
And my good is 89, which kind of makes the math work. So
you're better than me. I have about 5% fake and 20-something percent inactive. And
I did have a question about the graphs. I mean, is there a way to tell if, because you'd think that there might be jumps like this, maybe not this big, in response to marketing campaigns or something like that?
Yeah, you'd have to pay attention, and to really, if you really wanted to out someone, you'd have to go, and you could probably go and compare this graph, because Google News will generate graphs just like this, when a particular topic is in the news, and they'll show you spikes in interest. So you could go and look at Google News, and you could look at Google Insight. We'll do a similar graph of when people were searching for something. And if there were a lot of searches or a lot of news stories right around that spike, then yeah, maybe it was the news coverage that did it. I was just going to look and see what the stats on CA Right to Know were. I ran those the other day. And of course it's hiding. They were 58% fake. They have about 50,000 followers, 58% fake, and their number of followers went down in the 2 times that I measured it. It was 54,000 when I first did, and it went down to about 51,000. 58% fake, 30 inactive, and 12 real. So it looks pretty. I think it's pretty clear that group bought followers. Here's another one that's pretty huge, and I had never heard of this guy, so I don't know if this guy is real. He's in England. He's an autism campaigner in England, but like 90-something% of his followers are fake, and you can see quite clearly the big jumps where he bought several batches, and then at least one instance where a big hunk of them dropped off. But the worst guy, and all you have to do is Google this guy's name, and you'll see the consistency. Is I was looking at AltMed. I used one of the services that tells you the top Twitterers or whatever, and it will list them by number of followers. And this guy came up under AltMed, Dr. Joseph Obi, and I had never heard of him, but he had
heard of him.
He had like 200,000 followers, and it's like, who is this guy? And I ran him through the Fakers app, and he's like 99% fake or 93% fake, something ridiculous. And here's his graph, and you can see pretty clearly that he bought a bunch a while ago, and they were starting to fall off, and he bought another bunch and he only has like 1%.
Isn't he under arrest?
I don't think he's under arrest right now. I don't know. I found some old news stories from 2004 where he had gotten struck off as a physician in England, and now he claims he's running for the European Parliament in 2014.
Okay.
And all this other grandiose stuff. But he's an alt-med pusher, and apparently...
and he's unflappable.
He is unflappable. It says so in his Twitter bio.
That's what it says.
So it must be true.
What is unflappable?
When you have this large number of Twitter followers, do you think that it attracts more real people?
Well, I think that's the theory. I think that's part of the theory, is that if you have a young account, like you're just getting started, buy a batch of followers, and then people who find you might be more likely to follow you, thinking, oh, look, this guy's got 10,000 followers. He must.
Does this affect your clout number?
You as a clout number? You really clout?
Well, I don't have a clout number.
I was skeptical of that a long time ago.
But I've seen reports of people using it for, hiring marketers.
There's I heard of an airport lounge that would let people in based on their clout score, and it's really kind of ridiculous because it's an unknown proprietary algorithm that they use to calculate that number, so it's not entirely clear what exactly they're measuring. So, yeah, you should be skeptical of it. That would be an interesting investigation. And I just kind of got started looking through these and looking to see, but I think it might be a fun thing for skeptics who are interested in Twitter to do, is start punching in different alt-metters and paranormalists and whatnot into the Fakers app, and then look at these graphs that you can get from twittercounter.com and see if we can out a few of these folks as having a fake followership. Not that it makes as big of a difference as maybe Mitt Romney, but at least you can explain to somebody why Joseph Obi has 200,000 followers.
And could we have viewers post links to those screenshots
Sure.
in the show notes, maybe?
Sure, yeah. If somebody sends them in, I'll...
Yeah, we send them, we'll post them.
But in case of psychic mediums, I mean, they could have ghost followers.
Yeah.
I noticed one account that was very suspicious. You know, looking through their followers, I didn't know anybody. And I thought that was really strange.
Yeah. When this first hit, I went and looked through my own followers. There's a tool called twitblock.org, and it will go through and do something similar to what the Fakers app does and pull up the kind of the top suspects. And you really have to look hard because some people who are casual users of Twitter and maybe kind of don't know how Twitter works will do some things that make them look suspicious. And especially if it's like a new person, maybe they're a new skeptic who just came online and they just followed a whole bunch of people because it's like, hey, I'm on Twitter, I want to follow a bunch of people. Well, that kind of shows up as a red flag, following a bunch of people at once. So you have to kind of look, but yeah, I did find definitely some accounts where it's like, why is this person following this football club in England and this car dealership in Midland, Texas, and me. And some of them, I eventually figured out that they were using keywords. I would search for Tim in their follower list, and I would find they had followed like 14 people named Tim, and they would all be like together.
That's creepy.
Follower list. And Farley and other names like that. So.
I
Okay.
remember something similar earlier on Twitter when I first started. I think it was when I first met Misinformation Donna. She was complaining about being added to a list of Donnas. Like someone was just randomly searching for Donnas and making a huge list of all.
Putting them in a list?
Yes.
Why would you even do that? That's so weird.
Boredom?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like the name.
I wanted to get the panel's reaction to another story this week. That it's kind of the big one, the Bigfoot fatality.
Yeah, you can't really ignore that one. Shall I?
It's just this gigantic thing that's in the middle of the road.
Yeah. Well, Sunday night, this 44-year-old man in Montana was dressed in a military camouflage suit called a ghillie suit. There's a picture of it. So it resembles heavy foliage from head to toe. He stepped out onto a dark two-lane Highway 93 around 10:30 p.m. and was hit by a car and run over by a second car. His friend said he was trying to prompt drivers to report a Bigfoot sighting, but he actually went out onto the highway when he was hit, and reports were that he was well into the driving lanes. And what's really, it's a sad story, but what's really makes it worse is the girl who hit him was only 15 years old. She obviously couldn't see him in time. The other car swerved. A third car, driven by a 17-year-old, actually ran over the body, and he was dead at the scene. So no doubt those drivers were highly traumatized by that event. I don't think their age had anything to do with it, but the way he was dressed made him difficult to see. He was most certainly in line of traffic. It was a dark stretch of highway. One officer was quoted as saying, "This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen." And ghillie suits have been used to hoax crypto creatures before. There was a hoax film made to show a dogman attack. So the ghillie suit can make you look like you're covered in dirty, matted fur. But it's unclear if alcohol was involved in this case.
Well, I thought it was interesting. They're investigating whether the dead guy was under the influence of alcohol, not the drivers.
Right. Correct.
Suggests
Yes.
where the blame lies for the accident.
Wow.
I think the most surprising thing is that there's been lots of Bigfoot hoax films and photos. It's surprising that it's taken this long for somebody. They didn't get shot, which is what I would have assumed would have happened.
Yeah.
But he did something like this instead.
I've been looking for, since I've been doing What's the Harm, for a Bigfoot story. or 3 or 4 of them, because I kind of have it in categories, and it doesn't make too much sense to have a category with just one story in it. And I was almost sure that somebody was going to end up getting shot, but I never would have guessed that it would have been someone getting run over by a car. And boy, the skeptics latched onto this story. Every once in a while, most what's the harm stories I find out from like 1 or 2 people. I think like 15 different people sent me this story
Same
on
thing
every
here.
possible way: Facebook, Twitter, email.
I had the same thing. I had people just sending these links to Doubtful News and saying, "Have you seen this? Have you seen this?" And then it got picked up by media everywhere as well.
Yeah.
Even CNN, I mean, all the big outlets picked it up. When I posted the story to Doubtful News, I got a couple people, and on Twitter, I got a couple people saying, perfect candidate for the Darwin Awards.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what that is, where people exhibit behaviors that result in them being removed from the gene pool.
Yeah.
I personally do not like the Darwin Awards idea, because I think it's not only is it making fun of people's terrible decisions and they've died, but it doesn't really make sense in terms of natural selection, which is an environmental pressure, not someone doing something stupid once.
Right.
So I got kickback on that too, with people saying, well, it's just a joke. People don't think about Darwin that way. Yeah, they do. They have a very poor interpretation of Darwin as it is sometimes, and I think something like this, glorifying or making light of somebody's death and bad decision, is not in good taste, and we shouldn't do it.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, on that cheery note,
God!
I think we're at the end of another Virtual Skeptics, except for one remaining formality. And that's book time. You guys have
time.
Yeah, you guys have books ready?
I don't have a book.
Oh,
Maybe you
no.
can borrow one. Maybe borrow one from someone else.
All right, I'm gonna teleport. Hang on a second.
Okay.
So someone come up with a page number.
What?
Oh my God!
She just teleported from Pennsylvania to Atlanta. How did that happen?
How'd that happen?
You guys are dorks. You guys are total dorks. I'm not even going to admit that's my idea.
All right, so give me a page.
Okay, so what's her page number? Let's see. Someone give me a page number. Quick. Why don't you go first, Sharon, since you did the joke?
Oh, crap.
Oh, crap. Okay, first then. 63.
63.
Shall I go first since you all are looking at pages?
Yes, you go first.
Okay. When cities, villages, and tribes banded together under one common title, as the individual people had previously banded together to form cities, villages, and tribes, then they became mighty nations, or states, or nation-states. We use the words kind of interchangeably. Perversely, we were often more attached to our nations than we were to our cities, villages, and tribes, even though we tended to have less in common with the other members. That's just the way we rolled.
Okay.
Who's next?
I'll go. Bioplasm, cataplasm, chasm, demoniasm, ectoplasm, enthusiasm, iconoclasm, metaplasm, miasm, phantasm, phasm, plasm, pleonasm, protoplasm, sarcasm, and spasm.
It's Merriam-Webster.
Huh.
I love that. That's great.
Go, Sharon.
Oh, let's see. I don't know here. Okay. Suffice it to say, this aversion to communication, whether it's intentional or just the result of cluelessness, is real and can't be quantified. The business community long ago figured out you need equal efforts allocated to the objective part of your project, the creation of the product, whether it's a government report or an auto for sale, and the subjective part of your project, communicating to the public that you have something they should check out, also known as advertising.
You want to go next, Eve?
Okay. The bunyip is perhaps the most mysterious of Australia's mystery animals.
Hi, Richard.
And because of this, deserves mention here. In June 1801, a party of French explorers was traveling along the bank of the Swan River near the site of the modern city Perth. They heard a horrible roar coming from a bed of reeds in the river. Frightened by this unseen monster, the explorers fled for their lives.
Wow.
Wow.
Bunyip is a scary thing.
My turn?
Go. Yep.
The most remarkable triumph of the new historical counter-knowledge, however, is Gavin Menzies' best-selling 1421, The Year China Discovered the World. Menzies, a former Royal Navy submarine commander, argues that vast Chinese fleets circumnavigated the globe in the early 15th century, landing or establishing colonies in Australia, New Zealand, Greenland, Massachusetts, the Caribbean, and Brazil.
I have a guess for that one.
Okay.
Okay. Reveal. You guys all picked these like either very interesting or intelligent books. I picked.
I'm glad you liked the intelligence of the book I picked.
Earth.
Yes, Earth.
Good.
I have America.
John
I don't
Stewart.
have Earth yet. I do need to get that one.
And I didn't pick a particularly funny passage. There were lots of hilarious stuff in here, and actually, the pictures plus the words do it justice. So Bob was next, right?
Oh, I guess I'll do. I had
do it in the same order.
The complete rhyming dictionary.
There you go.
That's a great resource. Wow.
Yeah, the asms.
Asms. I'm going to get it just for that section.
Yeah.
You should have done a fulgent. I know it wouldn't be 63 of it.
I have Don't Be Such a Scientist by Randy Olson, which is, he's a filmmaker, and he tells you that sometimes scientists just talk too dry, and we don't really sell the wonderful product that we're trying to sell to the public. We don't do a good job of that. So it's a really good read. I enjoyed it a lot. Good tips.
Is he the guy from Flock of Dodos?
I chose one of the great comedy books ever written, Claws, Jaws, and Dinosaurs by Dr. Kent Hovind and William J. Gibbons.
Is he still in prison?
He is, yes.
So,
I hope you buy those books at used bookstores.
This was used. Yeah, absolutely was used.
Yes, please.
Bob, what was your guess on my book?
I was going to say Feder.
No.
No? Okay.
It's Counter Knowledge by Damian Thompson, who's, from what I hear, kind of an interesting fellow. But it was an interesting book. I found some interesting skeptic history stuff in there.
Cool. Awesome.
Excellent.
Great set of books. Thanks, everybody. That's this week. We're wrapped up. Oh,
wait,
hold it.
I've got a plug. I forgot to mention this last week. It was actually.
Is it going to be another podcast?
No. Skeptical Inquirer.
Ooh.
The September-October issue is coming your way if it's not already in your mailbox. And it's the Art in Skepticism issue.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article about Crispin Yego's Skeptic Trump.
Yeah, cool.
Those are so fun.
Yep. Very nice.
Tell you the whole history of how he came up with it, and then, as you can see, several of the cards are right there.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Tim. We lost Eve. Oh, well.
Oh,
I
no.
guess she's not going to be able to dance to the music.
Maybe I should leave now, too.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for our wonderful panel, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye. Oh, that's so cute.